What if Deku had the Venom Symbiote? This is a video that I'm sure you guys know has been done millions of times, but just as many times has not been finished. Nobody ever seems to finish the series, and if they do, it takes them about a year to do it. My mission today is to finish it as fast as possible, so thus today's video. By the way, in case you guys want to know who made the thumbnail for today's video, it's going to be Kari. You can find her link down below on Instagram, in the description. And also guys, if you guys haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you guys go down below if you're not subscribed already and hit that red button, and also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload, seeing as I upload Naruto and My Hero Academia content. That said it, let's get into the video.
Hey Ross, sauce it up.
We start a story after the events of Bakugo telling Deku to swan dive off the roof and him just going to pick up his book after, having it be in the mouth of fishes. He's walking, just like usual, dun 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 dun. He's walking under the sewer, right? Now, I'm guessing many of you guys already know what's about to happen. Instead of the sludge villain coming this time around, I'm actually just going to be replacing it with the Venom Symbiote. Say it not exactly was running away from nobody, and it was honestly just jumping from host to host, leaving the host dead after a couple of minutes of being used, seeing as we saw that in the Venom second movie that we saw from Marvel. So I'm just going to be using that adaptation. Well, not exactly the same thing, but a lot of its dynamics and the way that the Venom Symbiote works, I guess you could say. But anyways, essentially what ends up happening is Deku's walking by the sewer, dun 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 dun, and then bam, the sewer pop just blasts wide open. Izuku turns around and he's like, ah, like screaming like a little girl, and then the Venom Symbiote just looks at him and he's like, I need your body, kid. You know what I mean? Like in like the deep, like usual Venom voice. It then proceeds to jump on his body, and Deku's like, no, hero, but nobody hears him, right? And the Venom Symbiote and Deku proceed to bond about a minute later. Deku loses consciousness for a couple of seconds before then snapping out of it and looking at his hand, feeling invigorated. He feels power. Not only that, but the Venom Symbiote feels a perfect match with Izuku. Izuku, feeling the strength, begins to say, what is this? And that's when the Venom Symbiote proceeds to say, I am Venom, before then going on to explain what he does and what he can offer Izuku, telling him that he is a space alien that essentially needs a host to survive. And from what he can tell, his host is a very weak one. He then goes on to be like, look, kid, if I want to keep living, then I gotta be stuck to you because you just so happen to be a perfect match. And if you want to be strong, seeing as I can tell what you want to do because I'm reading your thoughts as we speak, you want to become a hero. Look, there's one way for all of us to get what we want. I stay as your host and give you powers, and you give me a home and feed me. Izuku, not knowing exactly what that last part means, is just like, okay, I'll feed you. And from here, he just goes off happy. The Venom Symbiote hides within himself, and Izuku just feels invigorated. He starts walking through the town. He starts like flirting with girls, flicking his fingers, just bully Izuku, you know what I mean? No, all jokes. But seriously though, Izuku makes his way back home, and from here, we pretty much enter inside of a 10-month training montage, in which during this entire time, Izuku would have essentially ended up training with Venom, and also found out what Venom meant by feed me, which was kind of not exactly what Izuku was expecting. Venom likes eating people. And Izuku did do that on one occasion when he went out on one night to try to be some sort of vigilante. Izuku decided that no, they're not doing that after the Venom Symbiote controlled his body one night and told him that that's not happening again. Not ever. The Venom Symbiote would be like, but I need like sustenance. And Izuku would tell him that as a hero, he can't kill. Not only that, but Izuku doesn't want to eat people. Telling him that unless he wants to go find another host, he needs to listen to his rules. The Venom Symbiote would be like, all right, bro, all right, you got it. I'm gonna have to let that slide just because you're my host. And from here, Izuku's like, all right then, we'll make this work. Before then going on to look at the Venom Symbiote and saying, so what exactly can we do? He then goes on to show him a bunch of powers like web slinging, enhanced strength, enhanced healing, also turning his bare hands into physical weapons, and he also then goes on to explain their weaknesses, which are essentially loud like supersonic noises, and also fire. Izuku, upon hearing that, would just think, oh great, so basically half the population that has fire quirks is going to be able to stop us. That's not good. The Venom Symbiote would say he understands that, but he would simply tell Izuku that whenever it comes to fighting some fire hero, he can slightly help him, but he's gonna be needing to get his host to be stronger if he, I don't know, wants to become something of himself. So Izuku, during the 10-month training period, would end up using the Venom Symbiote and training profusely. You know, having his enhanced speed, he's able to lift a lot of weights and hit the gym, not exactly cleaning the beach, because Venom is not about this, you know, do a public service act, you know, none of this stuff. And in case you guys are wondering, nobody gets one for all yet, just because I don't want Mirio to have it, and I don't want anybody else to yet. So we're going to be saying All Might's still looking for some host. I'm going to be honest though, I'm probably not going to be giving one for all to Izuku unless I change my mind drastically as the video goes on. But there is something that I'm thinking of doing that kind of might mesh into that. That said though, what ends up happening is essentially the 10-month training period would inevitably end, and the day of the UA entrance exam would happen. Izuku goes in, doesn't trip this time, you know, he's feeling confident, he's feeling good about himself. He sees Bakugo, doesn't show any hint of fear. Bakugo's like, what's up with Izuku? Why is he not scared of me? You know what I mean? Like, being just like, what's going on? And, you know, Venom would be reading his thoughts, being all like, what's wrong with, what's up with your relationship between you and that kid over there? Izuku just says it's nothing to worry about, and the Venom Symbiote says if he says it's nothing, then I guess it's nothing. Before then, just staying quiet in his mind, as Izuku just listens to the instructions and then basically goes outside, where he proceeds to start walking towards the front, towards the direction of Uraraka. Before suddenly, he moves out of the way to Ida, who is about to grab him by the shoulder and tell him not to bother that girl. Izuku looks at him and says, why were you trying to touch me? And Ida would say that he needs to stop trying to distract his fellow competition. Before Izuku says, out of my way, dude, I was just trying to get to the front. Ida would say, oh, my apologies, and then he would kind of just think to himself that Izuku was kind of a jerk. Before then going back to doing whatever it was that he was doing, and eventually President Mike would say, go, go, go! Izuku uses his, his web slingers to essentially blast up to the roof before then landing down and revealing his symbiote suit, which would spread through his entire body and create this gigantic buff-looking Venom. Everybody watches this and they're like, cool. As Izuku would then go on to essentially rip robots limb from limb. He literally eats some of them. He'll like rip off the arm and just just eat the whole thing, right? But Izuku just destroy is the only thing on his mind. And that's all he does until eventually rumble, you know, the ground starts shaking, kids start screaming, oh my god, it's the Zero Porter! And everybody starts running away, right? From here, Izuku would look up to the direction of the gigantic zero pointer that stands before him and, you know, everybody else, and he's like, all right, Venom, let's get out of here. Before then hearing the screams of one of his fellow competition, Uraraka. He sees her and his body begins to move before Venom stops it and says, we gotta go. But Izuku would say, we can't go, we gotta save her. And Venom would just be like, fine. These hero antics are so lame. Before they then rush towards her, they shoot a web at Uraraka and pull her to him, as he then proceeds to web sling through a bunch of roofs, not exactly destroying the zero pointer, but I'm not saying that he can't destroy the zero pointer. Does that make sense? That said though, regardless, Izuku would go on to take Uraraka to Recovery Girl, and from here, about a week would go by of Izuku simply waiting for the UA results to come back. They would come, and as many of you are probably expecting, Izuku ends up passing the test. Also ended up acing the SMART test, also just due to the fact that Venom has like thousands and thousands, if not millions of years of knowledge within himself. He of course is gonna know these simple basic equations, coupled with the fact that Venom has like super insane crazy memory that he's able to just whip out on the spot. Not to mention, he also has the thoughts of Izuku, who has been studying quirks, pro heroes, their fighting styles, you name it. Izuku has been thinking of these things, and Venom is just enhancing the good qualities that Izuku already had, as well as enhancing some of the bad qualities as well. So And by bad qualities, I mean like anger, rage, pent up frustration, things like that. That's definitely going to show itself when he fights against Bakugo later on, but we'll cross that bridge when we cross it. Eventually, the first day of UA High would pretty much begin to arrive, and what I see happening is Izuku just going in, it's his first day of school, he walks in, he's happy, opens the door, Bakugo. He sees Bakugo and immediately just gets angry. Venom begins to think that he's a real jerk. Before Izuku goes to sit in the back, Uraraka jumps in and Aizawa begins to say to meet him outside. He goes on to do the thing, change into his PE uniform, and eventually Aizawa would toss the ball to Izuku, which he would catch it with instant reflexes and look at Aizawa before he tells him, "Alright kid, look, you're gonna need to grab this ball and throw it as far as you can. I don't care how you do it, just get it done." Bakugo would simply be smirking, thinking to himself, that quirkless nerd's not gonna do anything, before Izuku then transforms into his big buff, Big Daddy Chungus Venom state, and then proceeds to start, throwing the ball up into the air before catching it with his web, spinning around a bunch of times like a javelin throw kind of, and then just letting it go to Kingdom Come, where the ball would just go flying off to who knows where. It gets a very impressive score, and Bakugo seeing this is like, "Izuku!" as he runs in and says, "How dare you hide these quirks from me?" Before Aizawa restrains him, yada yada yada. The rest of the quirk apprehension tests go by, and Izuku at the end of the day ends up getting second place. Actually, let's go with fourth, just because Izuku and Venom aren't quite perfect quite yet. You know what I mean? Like they're getting there, but they got their issues that they got to work through. Kind of like a newly couple. It's kind of funny. But what ends up happening is essentially after all is said and done, Bakugo would catch Izuku slacking after class and would ask him what that was back there in an alleyway. Izuku looks to Bakugo and tells him that he's not going to be his punching bag anymore, and that if he had a quirk before or not isn't Bakugo's problem. Bakugo grits his teeth and says, "I'll get you for this, Deku," before Deku just pushes him off and then begins walking away. Bakugo would try to throw an explosion at him, but as he would do so, Deku would dodge out of the way, shoot one of his shoot one of his tendrils, like web thing, at one of the trash cans and then sling it back at Bakugo as it would hit him, cover him with garbage, and Izuku would then run around the corner, then zapping up to the roof so that Bakugo couldn't find him, and then run from rooftop to rooftop, just laughing to himself, thinking, "We finally got Bakugo back for all those years of torment. Thank God." Izuku just is happy, all in all. And what ends up happening from here is eventually 2 days would go by. All Might would end up being like, "I am here, coming in like a normal person." And the entire class would be like, "All Might, it's you," right? Eventually the entire class would be like, "Wow, All Might, you're so great. You're so this, you're so that." All Might agrees, they're inflating his ego as many of you guys probably were expecting, and eventually he would end up revealing to them the Heroes vs. Villains event, which essentially consists of 2v2 battles about grabbing a bomb, yada yada yada. You guys get the point. Essentially, Izuku's team is still going to be Uchaka Uraraka versus Bakugo and Ida, and the way that I see this going down is kind of very, very similar to Izuku. This version of Izuku just simply doesn't have that fear that he had in the original canon, so when Ochako ends up asking him like, "Hey, what's your relationship with Bakugo?" Izuku's able to just look at her and tell her not to worry about it, that, they were just childhood rivals. Uraraka would say, "Oh, well, I'm definitely gonna do my best to help you face him." Izuku's like, "Yeah, thanks a lot for that." And from here, he would go on to look at her before saying that he might need that help considering Bakugo has an explosion quirk, and that includes a bit of fire that could end up actually damaging Venom. Water break! That hit different. Alright, check me out. So what ends up happening from here is essentially Izuku goes on to just be like, "Alright, Uraraka, I'm saying our best bet is just take it slow, make our way towards the roof. I'm estimating Bakugo's just gonna come down here lunging in, screaming something crazy like, 'I'm gonna kill you' or something." He does the Bakugo voice, and Uraraka just starts chuckling, saying that he's funny, playfully shoving him. Venom in his mind would say, "I think she likes you." And Izuku would be like, "What? No, there's no way she likes me. She's a girl." Venom's like, "She likes you, dude. Look at the way she's touching you." And Deku's like, No, Venom. She doesn't like me. Ain't no way." And Venom's just like, "All right then, buddy. You say so, then I guess it is what it is. Izuku just looks at Venom and is like, whatever. And from here, we then hear the iconic words, "Damn Deku!" He comes shooting in with explosions, being like, "I'm gonna kill you!" And Izuku's like, see? Before he then turns the corner and catches Bakugo as he comes in and throws the right hook that he always does. Izuku in his Venom form grabs him and slams him to the ground, actually breaking the floor that they're on and crashing down to the one below them. Bakugo ends up losing his air, and Deku jumps down only to land on Bakugo's stomach with a crushing knee to it. Bakugo coughs out blood and he's like, Deku, before he then like blasts off with an explosion to get some distance, and then says, "You think you're pretty funny, huh? You show off this incredible quirk and now you think you're better than me? Well, newsflash, Izuku, you're not." From here, he would then go on to take the pin off and then blast the explosion at Izuku's direction, as All Might would say, "Bakugo, you'll kill him." Bakugo would say, "We won't die if he dodges," and Izuku would jump into the open doorway that was right next to him, causing the explosion damage to not be as heavy as he had hoped it was. Eventually though, Izuku does get a massive amount of damage as Bakugo begins walking towards him slowly, being like, "Damn Deku, you knew this was gonna happen and you still challenged me. You're pathetic, you know that, Deku?" Izuku would turn back to Bakugo before saying, "I'm not pathetic, Bakugo. If anybody is, it's you. It's always been you." As he then looks to Bakugo, does a flip, and his entire injuries just close up and heal in an instant before the Venom Symbiote coats him, and he creates two hammer fists. He then rushes in and Bakugo throws an explosion and causes his quirk to kind of like jump off of him. Bakugo, seeing this, would realize it has weakness to fire, doesn't it? He begins throwing countless amount of explosions, and Izuku is starting to get overwhelmed until Uraraka runs behind him and trying to, make him float. She tries touching him, but Izuku is like, "Wait!" And Bakugo turns around before blasting her with an explosion and saying, "That's about the last time that you get help, Deku." Before he then looks at him and says, "How about we have some more fun?" Cracking his knuckles before then, realizing that one of his gauntlets is full. Izuku, seeing that, would say, "No, I can't let that happen again." He shoots a web at it and cracks it on the wall. Bakugo would be very angry at that, and Izuku would smirk before then rushing in at Bakugo as the Venom Symbiote goes on to begin to hide itself due to the fact that he doesn't want to get hurt by Bakugo. But Deku, having the amplifications of the symbiote, would rush in and begin dodging Bakugo's hits. He's been practicing his martial arts a little bit. I'm not saying he's completely dominating, but he's able to hold his own. Until eventually Izuku's able to whip out one of the Venom Symbiote thing on his hand and then punch Bakugo, sending him crashing into a wall where he inevitably falls unconscious, and Izuku's able to wrap him up with the wrap tape, right? He goes upstairs, finds Ida, and he's able to outclass him using his webs. He creates a trap on the ground that causes Ida to be stuck to it, and Uraraka goes over to rush over to the bomb, grabbing it before then hearing over the intercom, "Hero team wins! Report back to your stations." Eventually they do so, and what ends up happening following this altercation is essentially Bakugo wakes up in Recovery Girl's office only to see his embarrassing defeat to Izuku. He goes off in a huff and eventually decides that there's no way that Izuku could have possibly beat him with that villainous quirk of his. I mean, just look at it. Izuku doesn't even look like a hero when he uses it. He looks like a villain, if anything. Izuku, not thinking anything of this, just begins to go home and, accepts all the praise from his classmates. Eventually, though, the next day would come around and Bakugo would begin spreading random lies about Deku, saying that his quirk is kind of villainous, don't you think? People would begin to be like, "Yeah, but Bakugo, you have explosions. You're nobody to talk." Izuku just looks weird in appearance, but I'm sure he could probably change it. Izuku, upon hearing this, would be like, "You know what? My quirk actually does look a tad bit villainous. Venom, you think you could do something about that?" Venom's voice would recoil in his head as he would say, "Of course I can." Before then saying, "Is this cool?" Izuku would go to the boy's bathroom mirror, and Venom would start being like, "Is this cool?" Izuku would be like, "No." Venom, "Is this cool?" "No." "How about this?" "No." Just Venom being like, what about this, until eventually he gets to the one in the thumbnail, and Izuku would look at himself being like, "Hey yo, I look kind of good." This does look a little villainous though, but he doesn't care. He likes the way it looks. It looks way better than the other one where it's just a gigantic Venom, huge body. This time it makes Izuku grow in size a tad bit, but it still has elements of himself. You could see his face, you could see the cool Venom Symbiote, the All Might-esque ears. Izuku's loving every second of this costume, and he would end up saying that, yeah, this one's perfect. Before then, thanking Venom and then going back to class where he would go on to do his general studies. Aizawa would inform them that the very next day they're actually going to be all going to the USJ. And Izuku hearing this is like, USJ? Sounds like fun. Count me in. Everybody begins being like, Universal, or no, USJ, Universal Japan Studio. I don't know, dude. Whatever it is that they said in the anime is what's said. And from here, the symbiote would go in Deku's head before saying, so you guys are going to do some hero training finally? About time. Whatever it is they teach you, Izuku, I'll be sure to pay attention and pass that knowledge on to you. I'll engrave it into you if it's the last thing I do. Izuku just thanks Venom internally, and from here, he proceeds to essentially just go home, get his permission slips signed, and Inko would ask him, so Izuku, what's going to happen now in the video? Izuku would look at her, and Venom would then break the fourth wall. Time for our sponsor break. As anime fans, we love to show our support to our favorite shows by rocking anime apparel. But something I'm pretty sure we can all agree on is it's so expensive. So I've partnered up with Fandom to bring you all affordable, high quality anime merch that you are sure to love. And if you use my code ZETHER at checkout, you can even get an extra 10% off the already affordable merch. Keep in mind, it does come from overseas sellers, so its sizing is going to be different since it's overseas. That said, let's get back into the video. Alright, coming back from our sponsor break, essentially what happens is everybody and their mothers gets their permission slips signed, they go back to the class, they report to Aizawa, and they end up jumping on the bus where all of them immediately are on their way to the USJ. 13 gives a boring speech, yada yada yada, and then suddenly, Kurogiri arrives in the middle of the USJ saying, sorry to crash the party, heroes, but it seems we weren't invited. Like for part 2!